Well, I should have had you repeat the question a while ago because the answer I gave really was having the top 3 issues of this one.
Well, you can flip-flop it.
And so I'm going to flip-flop it.
The first question was for the county.
Southwest Travis County.
Yes, sir.
All right. That's real easy. Southwest 45, SH 45 has to be built. And I have worked on that since I've been elected. I'm going to continue to work on that. I have fought to keep it on the Campo plan. I'm going to continue to do that. I have a plan to get it worked out, to build it as a county road, not as a state road. It's going to require all kinds of additional time to get it done. SH 45 is a must. The second is the Y. I worked on with this TxDOT on these interim improvements to the Y, and next week we're going to have a press conference where we're going to announce the beginning of the environmental impact statement for the Y so that we can get that transportation at least buy us some time while we work on the final solution to that. The other issue is a groundwater conservation district in Southwest Travis County. We have to install a groundwater conservation district in Travis County. Mr. President is correct when he talks about the complex of our water system. We have river authorities that run generally west to east and aquifers that run generally north and south. And they overlap, but they don't talk to each other, and there's a real problem with that. However, groundwater, the issue of the ownership of the groundwater has been clearly litigated many times, and that issue is settled. So the 2 things that we need to work on will be SH 45, Transportation Southwest Travis County, Groundwater Conservation Districts, and then I'll be working on the propane issue as well for Southwest Travis County.
Thanks, sir. Well, along with the 3 priorities I just spoke about, I have a plan to reinvest in education. Paul Workman voted to cut $5.4 billion out of the public education fund. And if you go to his website, he talks about how important public education is. So I don't understand that. I have a plan that comes up that reinvests more than $500 million annually in the public education fund by taking money out of the Texas Lottery Commission and putting it in the public education fund. And that's exactly what, if you'll remember correctly, the Texas Lottery Commission was supposed to do. Okay? They said when we implement this program, you're never going to have to worry about funding public education again. Well, here we are. Worried about how we're going to fund public education again. So I've got a plan to do that. I also want to look at superintendents' pay. A lot of people don't realize that superintendents make more money than the governor of this great state. And I don't think Governor Perry earns what he makes, but that's a whole other story. And that doesn't include their bonuses, their benefits, and their retirement packages. We can't lay off 12,000 teachers and close down schools all across Texas and not look at cutting some fat at the top. So that's a common sense approach. And I think we need to create more legislation. My mom worked for a school district for 27 years. So I got to hear all the time at the supper table about how much waste goes on up there. We need to create legislation that requires them to work as efficiently and effectively within their budgets and that framework as possible. So that's my plan with that. Number 2, this is one thing that really gets under my skin. I want to end the corporate welfare state. Okay? Paul Workman voted to give $36.5 million of your tax dollars to Apple Corporation, who is sitting on $100 billion in cash assets alone. Then they said, well, we're not going to guarantee that we're going to hire 1 person in Travis County. So I want to end that, as well as, not to mention the $290 million that was given to Formula One that was stolen from you and given to these people to run their for-profit business. I want to bring an end to all that. 3, I want to end social services and free in-state tuition to non-citizens. We have a big problem with illegal immigration, and the problem is we creating incentives and rewarding and enabling this behavior, and that's exactly what House Bill 2886 does. It's pro-amnesty and it grows the government with no way to pay for it. So those are 3 things that I want to focus on, as well as the other priorities that I mentioned earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. For the sake of time, we're going to have one more question and then open up for a few questions from the audience. Recently, HOA management companies have increased the fees and added the fees onto the sales of homes. There's a resale certificate transfer fee, and now some companies are charging a 3rd fee, all of which can be any amount they choose. Would you support legislation that would set a cap on the fees that the HOAs can charge buyers and sellers at the time of sale? And I believe we're opening up with Mr. Representative Work.
Okay, that's a good question, and my answer is no, I would not support a cap on the fees. However, I will support the full disclosure of whatever those fees are, because a buyer has to know what they're getting into when they get ready to purchase a home. But to try to limit the fees would just not be right. I was surprised to hear Nick say that he wanted to do something about superintendent pay, because libertarians are all about the free market and everything, and they're being paid based on the free market. And I'm surprised to say that you would like to get into regulating the superintendent pay. Where will you stop? Are you going to start? Are you going to keep it going down where janitors? You're going to have to set the pay of janitors? That doesn't make sense. So I think that the free market is going to work the best. When the HOAs, they need to be able to set whatever rates they feel like they can charge or need to charge, but that those rates must be disclosed prior to the sale of a home.
Now, this was a test question, I guess, to see if we know how to research an off-the-wall question, because, you know, I've lived in the Onion Creek Country Club, which is a HOA, but it's an old HOA. And the fees weren't excessive. And there's a management of that association, which is all of us that live there. We vote on it. We participate. The HOA meetings are huge. HOAs are the lowest form of government we have. So when I did my research, I was a little surprised when I found that most HOAs, first of all, start by a developer who is putting together a community, and he starts the HOA. He writes the covenants. He gets his people to okay those covenants. He puts it in place. Now, there used to be a law in the state where after 50% of the houses in the community were sold, the HOA was supposed to revert to the owners. And that bill may be still in place, but the developers have discovered that this is a cash cow. And they don't like to give up control of the HOAs. They like those fees, those transfer fees. They like to be able to pay themselves back for all the common areas that they put in to get people to buy their houses. And that's where this question comes from. These are corporate-owned HOAs that are doing this, raising these fees and hiding them on your closing costs. I almost sound like a libertarian. I believe that the lowest form of government we have should be run by the people.